All right, what's good, everybody? This is series two, episode two. One more episode on conspiracy theories, and I'm done. I'm not gonna touch about conspiracy theories. So a lot of the times with this type of subject, conspiracy theories, I will talk about politics. So I said I was gonna be limited and not gonna talk about politics. So I might just do this video and then another one in the future, and that is it. Probably here and there if there's another season that might touch politics, but I'm gonna try and limit the politics. I've been having issues with writing this. I was having glitches, and then uh I was updating it, and then all of my stuff was about to get deleted. I'm like, no, no, no! Like somebody doesn't want me to make these video, man. So I'm gonna try and see if I can go fast and explain. I don't want to make it too boring. I want to make it a little bit exciting so for you guys to actually see this video. So the reason why I come up with these numbers, there's this lady by the name of Dolores Cannon where she mentions that 80% or 70%, like a huge percentage of the population is the backdrop people. Now, I'm still skeptical on that. I believe that 70 or 80% of the people are nothing but energy vampires for reals. That's where the world it is right now, and I think that percentage has increased. I don't know what is causing that. I feel like 50, 60 years ago, the people who were manifesting are getting smaller and smaller, and I don't know if it's because the food that they're giving us, the drugs, the medication, the polluting on our skies, vaccines. I think all of that is a combination of many factors that is causing people to start manifesting less and less as time goes by. Because if you look at it, man, you don't have to take my word. There's less marriages, and if there's marriages, they're not happy. Um, I think back then, I mean, of course, there's always gonna be arguing, but like, there's people that are just feel miserable when they're married. When they have a career, when most people were happy having a career back then, now they're miserable having their career. Like everything's just sadness, misery, when people should be like, hey, I'm happy that I have all these kinds of things, and I feel like there's somebody or something that is trying their best to keep the whole world into misery. And I'm just trying to see if I can wake up people up because this shit's not talked about that much. So yeah, Dolores kind of mentioned the backdrop people. I feel like it's instead of the backdrop people, I call it the energy vampires, and I think the food has less minerals. That's why people need to consume more food, and on an energy level, they hurt people in order to consume that energy that to feel them good. Since there's people getting less sun, there's less people getting food. That's why I feel the percentage of energy vampires is increasing because those people don't have that energy, spiritual energy in them in order to manifest anything. So I say less than 10% of the world population are very good at manifesting riches and wealth and need to utilize their money in order to influence the world through money and connections. Uh, I don't know what's the percentage here. Of course, you got the super rich elite that are like the 0.001% or four or five zeros 1% of the world population. But then you got that millionaires and a few billionaires and people that have like $500,000. Not that many people have $500,000 or whatever currency they have in their nation. So I feel like those people are still in this type of category where they have an abundance of wealth. And I say the top of the food chain. I should change this to at least $50,000, man. Yeah, let me change it. 50,000. The top food chain, these are the people with mansions, a lot of properties, own access, religious leaders, politicians, what have you, man. Um, people who constantly never struggle when it comes to manifesting richness. Of course, they probably struggle like, man, I want a Bugatti, but getting them like a nice vehicle that's not a Bugatti is like not a not an issue. If they don't have a mansion, they have a really nice house. Not everybody has a house. A lot of people are living with siblings or living in an apartments. So yeah, these people have everything that's owned by them. So these are less than 10%. What percent again? I have no idea, but I know for a fact it's less than 10%. Then there's that 20% of the world population. I feel like in the 1950s this was 30%, but I think as time goes by it started to shrink just like this, started to shrink. I feel like I can't give an approximate number in this one, but I think on this one I think it was around 30% of the world population, and now it's at 20%. And these people, and I feel like I am in this category right here. So if you think you're either here, I think most people that are gonna watch this video are not gonna be in this category, but who knows? Most people are gonna be here or here that are watching this video. So 20% of the world population are manifesting nothing for them, but they have the power to change the world. These people are the struggling people, but are never in the worst situations in life, and they're struggling to meet end needs or whatever they desire in life. Forgot to put this, but they're not struggling. So these percentage, they're the ones that are getting picked up the most, bullied, pushed around. These are people are in isolation. Usually they're never in the same place. Like if they're in the same school, they're never around each other, because if they're really around each other and they express their desires and opinions, they start manifesting faster than these people over here. And I feel like intentionally life or the Matrix has intentionally put these people separated from each other as much as possible. Because once you have people with the same mentality, same minds coming together, they become unbreakable and they start forming our future and basically changing our past, because people think that our future is only changeable and our past is already stay put. Nah, the past can change, man. As crazy as that sounds, just like our future can change. And if people will say like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, ever heard of the Mandela effect? It's a very very real phenomenon that's affecting so many people. Now, I haven't been touching that. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna make that on my third episode on that theory, because I introduced several Mandela effects to big YouTubers who are talking about this, and they never gave me credit. Never. So I feel like, you know what? If I'm influencing this community and I'm not putting a lot of effort, and they've been getting a lot of Mandela effects because of me, and I'm not getting any credit, like I'm not asking for much, it's just as long as I get credit, well then screw this. That's why there's not that many Mandela effects out there, I feel, because if I would have put my energy and focus on it and like a full-time thing, it would have been a lot more Mandela effects, man. Because I was touching on that subject for about a year or so, or a little bit more than a year, around there, like a year, 2017, 18. Um, I said average, they're the ones living paycheck to paycheck or a few hundreds to a few $1,000s saved up in their bank. So these people can be in a war zone, but they're not necessarily like in the worst situations, um, such as homeless. No, these people are the ones that are like struggling the most, like no energy sometimes whenever there's like a war zone, or they're constantly moving around, or if they're not in a war zone, like if they're living in a big city, they're constantly struggling to find like a good career on their it's just struggle for them in order to put them in in this category right here, but they do have that spark in them. Now, what is causing people to not manifest? I think I have a number of reasons as to why, but I don't think I should mention it in this video. I did mention some aspects of it, but not necessarily like the real reason. All right, the average, they're the ones leaving a paycheck to. Okay, I think I already mentioned that. Now let's go with the energy vampires. I feel like this number has increased from like around 50% to like 70 to 80% in the past 2 or 3 decades. And people are gonna be like, man, this guy's tripping. Well, back in the 90s, and I feel like that's when the energy vampires really started going up in percent. People would mingle and would get along with families. You had Christmas, you had Thanksgiving, you had people like 20, 30 in a small house or in a decent sized house enjoying Christmas with grandma. Now you don't have that many people doing family gatherings. And it's not just Canada and the United States, it's becoming worldwide, man. This phenomenon where people are not getting together anymore that much. And for the same obvious reasons that they don't have that like loving energy, like whenever you have energy vampires, they'll mingle and they'll stay around, but they won't stay around for too long. So one of the things that the energy vampires they'll do is that they'll be around like in a party, but after that, after a party, they'll just bail out, man. Like they don't want to be at the party. And same thing, if they're around people they like, they try to be like trying to see if they can get something out of that group and then bail out as much as possible and not be around that group. So usually these people are always trying to be around people. They're not the loner types. They're usually more um, sociable people. So 70-80% of the world population cannot manifest nothing, but are able to suck up the energy so in order for them to really start manifesting stuff out of the 20% of the world population. Probably around 20 or 30%, around there. 20, 25. So I don't know the percentage of the ruling class. These people are in the worst situations in life or are above average in life, never below average in the middle. So these people are the ones that you see on Instagram or Facebook or on TikTok. They send them like amazing white teeth, good smile. Um, really, really. I'm not saying these people cannot, but I'm like these people are usually on a really good smile and they're with a family with a small kid. You see them really happy for like a year or two, but then like 5, 10 years from now, boom, divorced. Or boom, out of nowhere, they started getting into drugs. So like they'll hit the gym for a good number of years, but then they'll start losing the gym and they're never in the same balance in life. It's always up and down for them. And if it's usually that up and down that with them it's usually like up and down like that or a big up and then a slowly down. And usually the people that are in a big going up slowly that are really 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 triumphing, they're the ones that are gonna hit the hardest the slowest. So they'll be good for a good 5, 10, 15 years. And boom, out of nowhere, they start losing so much money. They start losing friends, family members. Everything starts collapsing with them. Why? Because they've been very good at really sucking up energy until somebody comes along and and they start like really latching on them. Um, and again, like it's the food, the sky, man. Like you don't have to be an energy vampire. Like you can slowly start getting like there's a few sources that can get spiritual energy, and I'll tell a few aspects of getting it. That's direct sunlight, man. There's a reason why they're avoiding direct sunlight because it brings not only vitamin D3, but it brings so much benefit. And I feel like that's one of the spiritual. energies that we can obtain in order to start manifesting stuff. And they've been really demonizing the sun, saying it, well, it causes skin cancer, it causes this and that. I'm not saying it doesn't. Everything in abundance is bad, so you have to limit, but you got to understand that the powers that be, they don't want people to start getting direct sunlight daily because it's just so much beneficiary for them. And as a cause of that, they want to sacrifice everybody. But there's other ways that the elite can get it without just getting direct sunlight. There's other factors of it. I mean, let's go on with here. So the average homeless or they're ones with good careers, such as nurse, teachers, agents. I think teachers can be debatable here. Probably like have to be in good positions. Agents, any agents of a corporation or law enforcement as well. They pay above average. The average in America is around 40K. Google, I searched this up, dude. Google says it's around 60 to 70K, which is bullshit. That's not. That's probably average in many cities, but the average town, average rural place, they don't make that, man. Hell no. Like Google just brings so much, and you think that Google because it's linked to whatever answer with their AI, what's called the Google AI? I forgot the name. That brings up a lot of like facts, but don't think that's always right. Like, 'cause I don't trust Google's answers. So more or less the people who earn 60 to 125K, these people are in this percentage and they have the highest ups and downs in life. They're never in the middle. Now, you gotta keep in mind, man, that if you have these type of people in your life, you're gonna start feeling like shit. And it can be your loved one, it can be your father, it can be your mother, it can be your son or daughter. That's a very unfortunate thing, man. And there might be ways to break off people from being energy vampires. Um, there's several factors that I think can play a role, such as um, eating a better diet. Most energy vampires have horrible diets, and if they have good diets, they just don't like being around nature. They like being around people, but they just don't like being around nature. Nature, like walking around, getting that direct sunlight, being around trees, like stuff that will make people happy before all the freaking technology ruined it. Basically, that's all I'm gonna say. You can do your own research. All right. So now I'm gonna move on to the timelines that the Western establishment elite are changing, and the ones that are red are the ones that they capitalize because people realize, well, everything is already written in the future. Like I even did a previous conspiracy video where I mentioned my predictions, where I've been making a lot of predictions, but like I said, my predictions are not set in stone. It's just one decision, one action from a person or group of people that changes everything in the future. And the Western establishment elite want a one world government, and the Eastern establishment want a multipolar world. Both are bad, man. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to support Russia and China in all of this. I wish there was an alternative for this nonsense. Because at the end of the day, there's monopoly and there's control on both sides of the spectrum here. Now, the Western establishment is going to be far worse because it's going to be owned by very, very, very few elite. And in the Eastern, at least you have respects on other nations that have their own elites on every government. So at the end of the day, the average and the lower class will get screwed on the side of the Western and on the side of the Eastern. So there's no model as of right now, 2026, that's going to be benefactor, that's going to help society, humanity as a whole. to live an everlasting, peaceful, and happy life. I feel like we can in the future, but it's gonna take some work, man. Now, I feel like a lot of the timelines that are happening right now as a result of September 11, 2001, the World Trade Center. Now, many people think that from there there was a domino effect with capitalizing a lot of things from the United States becoming a freedom-loving country to becoming a more espionage, self-serving, self-controlling nation that gives whatever desires to the very few to the information that they're obtaining. So what's happening is that United States is becoming like a big giant spyware for the future for the society that's going on with everything that's been unfolding after 2001. And the internet was a very, I should have put the internet because the internet was one of those things where it could have been highlighted in white. That white is something that but since I'm moving after 2001, that's why I didn't put it here. Is that it was like feel like the internet was never meant to be released to public. Never. I truly believe that. I think it was only meant for like the military and like several sources, but never in public. And I think the only reason why it was released to public was because for several factors, and one of them, like the main one, I'm just gonna name the main one, is to really wake up people for the real aspects of what's going on in life. I believe that by 1,000%. That's the only reason. So if you think it was God's intention, high power, high source, or whatever you want to call it, I feel like that's a fingerprint that there was high power that really put that fingerprint there, and there was nothing that the Western establishment elite could have done in order to change it. Now, I feel like we could have a timeline right now where they change that, but they're trying. They can't change the internet to move into the public, moving into private sector instead of public sector. So I mentioned after 2001, there has been acceleration of monopolies to take down small and big stores of companies and branch it out to known corporations' names and by Western establishment. You see this, man, on everything now. You see the movie sector buying off branches of names in order to suck it up and make it bigger. You see it in games. You see like Microsoft buying off a big, smaller companies, and it's gonna get worse in the coming decade or two, where like there's not gonna be that many um, small companies if this keeps on going, unless like this is not written in stone, unless we change it. And I hate to say that if we give off too much power into AI, we give it too much power into that scarcity of not scarcity into that like scared that we don't have control over our future. That like that's a lot of bollocks. So somewhere in the mid to late 2000, an increase of influx of spraying on our skies began in order to prevent society from getting direct sunlight that helps them acquire vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is linked by finding off body fat, getting good sleep, and happiness. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's more to it. Now, people are gonna, even professionals, they're gonna be like, what? Vitamin D3 helps burn body fat? Like, search that up, man. As soon as they started spraying on our skies, people begin looking older, fatter, less attractive, man. And this usually happened around the mid to late 2000s when they just started scaling up. And I don't want to go more into that because that's like it respects its own episode, but there's been people, and I could put here, um, that have been fighting these chemtrails or shit on our sky. There's been a spread of awareness, so there's been a pushback. So not necessarily like they have already obtained a victory here, and it's like already set in stone. We can definitely change this, man. And around 2006, an increase of truthers and conspiracy theories started going full force against the narrative from the Western establishment elite. A lot of these conspiracy theories were laughable in the mid 2000s, say most of 2010s also. But now in 2026, they are now all turning to be true and not conspiracy theories. Like a lot of this stuff, man, I started learning in 2006 and 7. That's when I started getting my spiritual awakening. Um, Pretty much started getting acceleration when YouTube came in full force. Because people use YouTube very, very rare in 2005. So it was not until 2006 when a huge percentage spike of people were using it. And then after 2006, it just got bigger and bigger every year. North Korea in 2006 acquired nukes. They tested nukes. I feel like if it wasn't for the conflicts in the Middle East, they could have pushed towards the Korean peninsula and start putting pressure on China. I think that was probably on the cards, but I mean the Western establishment elite don't have all the power to accelerate their plans. I mean, there's a reason why they want to take Russia because Russia has been really destroying a lot of the plans of the Rothschilds ever since the foundation of America in the 1700 in the 1700s. So that's another part that you can look up. I'm not gonna talk about that in this video. That's why for over 200 years they've been trying to destroy Russia because whatever organization or country like starts resisting their plans, like they will do everything in their power to go after them and to the bitter end, man. Unfortunately, um, Bashar al-Assad tried to have the same nukes, but unfortunately wasn't fast enough. I mean, look at that, man. Israel was next to it, so that's why they got neutralized. Now, if Israel would have destroyed their nuclear facility 2007, maybe Syria would have never been attacked by Israel relentlessly. I still think the civil war might have happened for sure, but yeah, that's about it. And I forgot to mention something about Syria here. Let me just mention it here since I forgot to mention here. So in 2018, I said that the stopping of conflict against Idlib and having those diplomatic channels set in place was going to bite Syria in the butt in the future. And I was one of them, of few other people out of the 20% that we put the energy on Syria not falling in 2016 because I feel that 2016 Syria would have fall 100%, man. I feel like instead of 2024, Bashar al-Assad would have left Syria in 2016. Not 2024, 2016. But if it wasn't for me and several people out there that we put our energy into this conflict, I remember constantly watching videos and news about like when ISIS was about to really start um, taking Damascus, and then they were like taking Palmyra, and it was a back and forth thing. The reason why I really wanted to put my energy into this conflict was because the Israeli project of the greater Israeli project was going to accelerate. You have the Israeli project accelerating, you have the Antichrist coming in at a much rapid pace. And the only reason why the Western establishment elite want the Antichrist in order to really destroy all the fundamental things that we have on our society, which is religion, which is um, having the norms, family norms, everything's gonna get destroyed. as a result when this antichrist is gonna come in and then start changing the fundamental things of how we think, how we operate in the world, and start saying bullshits like we are all one, we are this, and just destroying the way of life for society in order to change a new form of thinking, which is not gonna be beneficial in the long run. It's gonna be look really good on paper, man. Trust me, there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna fall for it. But if this happens, which I am putting my energy, it will not happen. It's it's gonna be beneficial, but I mean, like the elites, as long as they're still gonna be operating here, because they're being used by these fifth dimensional beings that are just pain in the ass, man. And that's the only reason why we haven't seen a break, and we probably might not see a break in the coming future because we're not just dealing physical problems. We're dealing spiritual problems that are in the fifth plane. Anyways, let's move on here. So Vladimir Putin paying the Rothschilds a debt in Russia in 2007 and throwing the middle finger and on the Western elites. And ever since that happened, they've been trying to pay off Vladimir Putin. They brought him in Texas, talked to Bush. I know there was some deals that were talking him back and forth. They let's do this, let's do that, and I think Putin kind of played along a little bit, but I think he saw the bigger picture. And then the 2008 conflict happened, and then just he just saw that he was a target. Uh, and I think now he's I feel like he's playing both sides, but I think he's more of the multipolar world order, in my opinion, because he's been a target ever since 2007 when he basically threw the middle finger. Let's see. So I was gonna talk about Syria, some one thing as well that I blanked out. So yeah, I said 2018 they were gonna bite them in the butt, and it did exactly as I predicted. I said that, and I would have made a video back then, but I didn't. I kind of regret, um, because I knew exactly that this was gonna really bite them in the butt, and then I started making research as to what happened in 2018. Like Bashar al-Assad dismantled their top Western, no, they started dismantling a lot of their military officials. Because I think he thought that the diplomatic route was actually going to work and is going to succeed by giving Turkey a portion of Syria and making it like annex it in the future. Um, and then side with the Gulf nations. And it's just, I don't know, man, what he was smoking on. It's just very, very poor decision making, in my opinion, that he did in 2018. But anyways, in 2001, Gaddafi, what was it? 2000, not one, 2010, I think. I don't know if it was late 2010 or early 2011. He introduced a new gold currency and he got assassinated as a result. Now, this was gonna bring Africa as a continent to become the next superpower region. And I feel like Africa, if it had something like the Russian Federation style, in like if it had like South Africa having all those nations, and then having like a really those train stations that China has that are going like 200 kilometers per hour, like moving the routes in order to go in from Israel to Africa. Man, the trade, everything would have been super, super crazy for Africa. Like the acceleration progress of Africa would have been off the roof. But again, they want to keep Africa dumbed down, broken into smaller nations in order to extract the resources and its wealth from Africa. And they've been doing that for better part of many centuries. I mean, You don't have to believe me. I mean, just look at the history books. It's all there, man. So Sudan got split up into two in 2011 as a result, and other nations like Somalia are starting to get broken up. You see the pattern here? It's like a domino effect for one thing, and something like this is slowly going to be a domino effect for Latin countries as well. We're kind of seeing it right now, a little bit playing unfold, but at a slower pace. But yeah, the was it Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, there's Ethiopia as well, the brinks of getting, and then there's been other conflicts that could have erupted in Nigeria, Niger, and again, like that could have, like somebody out of this percentage over here really put their energy and their focus on Western Africa from not really going really violent, like more or less like the Central Eastern Africa, where there's more violence there. So there's people at work here that are really putting effort here in this region of the earth. All right, YouTube acquires Google in 2012. That's my memory. But if you Google, they have obtained it in 2006, and I've seen several sources as well. I do not remember this. And again, they changed this for the same reasons that I'm mentioning here, that the elites are trying to suppress freedom of speech, and they're trying to change stuff on our past, and it starts to change more on our timeline. So I remember very clearly YouTube buying off Google on late 2012, around there. And in 2013, they started changing all kinds of rules where you have to log in and shit, and it was not the same. And I remember there was a lot of people that were getting pissed off. Around there, 2012, Xbox was doing some bullshit security um, credentials that was pissing off a lot of people, and then that's how many people stopped playing Xbox. Um, After 2012, that's why the PS4 won the race from that Xbox. What was it? Xbox One? Yeah, the PS4 beat the Xbox One because people didn't want like all these security updates and shit that so like Google, I remember Xbox doing it around that time and Google doing it around that time. And Google, when they acquired YouTube, from my memory, I remember that you couldn't do any more thumbs down and flag people's comments. People would bully on purpose, or sometimes just for the just because people were jerks, they would flag people's comments and thumb down, and you couldn't see it anymore. Now, most people that are watching this video probably don't even remember that or never seen that. I'm telling you, YouTube on those days were like the wild, wild west, man. And I wouldn't be surprised if that has never been the case on this timeline, because they really changed this. So someone who's against freedom of speech, tap in their energy to change of the freedom of speech. All right, so more or less the same crap that I was saying. So he introduces the multipolar world in 2017, but he doesn't tell it in public, an image, up until 2023 with Vladimir Putin. That's when they tried to really start fighting off the one world government agenda, in order to really, because the multipolar world order favors a lot of the Asians, and then the one world government, of course, favors a lot of the people that are living in Europe for the better part. And they can we call all kinds of things that there's only 13 family. I don't know about how many family bloodlines there is. That's not important. The matter is that there's a good number of families that are living in Europe and the West that really want to be that small percentage that um, are gonna pay waving into this one world government, where they have the ruling class and they have the working class. The ruling class will have all the fundamentals of freedom, and then the working class will be a hive mind system Well, they'll be attached into this fucking machine where there will be no freedom will, where the person cannot think whatever he thinks and he cannot see what he wants to see. Everything will be programmed into their brain. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut people's eyes to make them all like interlink with their thoughts and just becoming the new human race. And if that happens, like that's changing the human species as a whole. So yeah. So Ajit Pai tried to control the internet in 2017 and the FCC got a big loss. I really, really celebrated when this happened because they tried to do some bullshit controlling subscriptions in order for you to see the internet. And again, I think this is probably God intervening again and saying, you shall not pass. So I think that's pretty much what happened here. So yeah, let's move on. So after 2020, there's everything is slowly getting digitalized, but there's a percentage of people who's fighting the what the hell? Oh, the you will own nothing and be happy agenda. So yeah, I mean, I noticed that after this time, there's been acceleration of indie games and video games in order to fight this. There's been an increase of companies moving into physical, like two or three companies that I know right off the bat. I can't remember the names, I'm sorry, but I know there's some companies that really accelerated as a result of this. DVDs and Blu-rays have been dying after COVID, but I'm seeing them like a slowly increase again for the first time in over probably 10, 15 years. Like there's been an increase of people buy, and I'm one of them. Well, like me and my brother, we're one of them of getting DVDs and Blu-rays because a lot of companies like Best Buy, they're not selling them anymore on their stores because people won't buy them anymore. Like for the better part of the late 2000s, early 2010s, people were just pirating shit left and right, and that was causing a lot of the movies and stuff like that that was going downhill. And then the music as well, people were pirating. So I kind of see like the music as well is. I'm not saying it's seeing a revival. I think the movies is probably dying much faster than movies. And then the books, um, I don't know. I cannot comment. I haven't really started looking, investigating that on the books. I feel like there's been an increase on the books as well, but I don't think it's as bad as the music, in my opinion. All right, so Russia invades Ukraine in 2022. I remember when this conflict erupted. As many people, and I'm not a military expert, but I have really good idea of many things. Because, like I said, I see timelines in the future. That's why I'm very good at making judgment when it comes to military stuff. I was one of the people that was laughing, like, come on, man, like, that's not even half a million troops that's invading Ukraine, which is not a big country. I mean, not a small country, sorry. Most people say, well, Ukraine is a small country. Yeah, it is small compared to Russia, but by any of the stretch imagination, it's not a small country. Now, with that forces that came in on Ukraine, that was sufficient for the number of troops that came in on Georgia back in 2008. That could have been sufficient for them, but not enough in order to really. And I feel like there could have been many factors as to why there wasn't that many numbers. And many people say, well, they weren't ready for the conflict, and there's other many factors. When that conflict erupted, I'm like, man, this is very dumb that Russia's just spreading out its troops everywhere. They should focus its troops into Mariupol and really like surround that city in order to actually make whatever troops that's there to actually move them out of the place. And that's exactly what happened, man. Like exactly how I thought about it, it happened. Now, I could say some stuff about the conflict in Iran, but since there's a lot of stuff that has not happened yet, I'd rather not touch anything because I don't want to say anything on the side of Israel, and I don't want to say anything on the side of Iran on this. So, so after 2022, many neutral or pro multipolar world order inspiring nations started joining the Western elites, such as Argentina, Sweden, Finland, and others. And again, same thing would happen with Africa in 2011. That cascading effect or domino effect where um, there's nations that are getting divided. And I feel like with Africa as an ongoing, man, I feel like countries are gonna get divided more if people are not putting their energy in order to really start bringing peace or or seeing which side is actually more in the wrong than the good and putting their energy in order to actually because the side that's more in the wrong than the good, that's the side that's gonna start killing civilians more. That's why the reason why I didn't want Syria to fall because ISIS was gonna actually do massacre people on a mass scale if they would have invaded all of Syria and Iraq. They would have killed like the minorities, man. By now, they would have been almost to shreds. They would have destroyed thousands of year old monolithic buildings, like Christian buildings and other buildings that were there for thousands of years. They would have been all destroyed, man. That's the reason why I put that energy into that conflict. And again, most people are not putting their energy as much as they should in Africa because the conflict it always spreads faster and you don't see that much on the mainstream media as well or on YouTube. Unfortunately, that's why Africa I feel like that's like it spreads faster the violence and it gets divided because there's more players that are really gripping on a continent that could have been super rich right now. Probably would have been the most richest continent in the world by now. They have so many minerals, man. It's absurd. It's the worst continent in terms of like roads, buildings, structure of life, like everything, man. It's a sad thing. But let me just move on so I can cut the stream. 2023 president currently trying to. All right, I mentioned this already. So most people think that Venezuela is already fully controlled. Not necessarily because they need to rebuild a lot of the stuff in order for a lot of that refinement of oil can start moving back into United States as it was in the what was it 80s and 70s. So I think that Venezuela once it really starts to pay off all of like start getting all these billions of dollars of debt, that's when you know that Venezuela has fallen. Just because Maduro fell, that doesn't mean that Venezuela has fallen. And just because Cuba is not getting oil, that doesn't mean that Cuba has fallen already. Yeah, their people are living in the misery, they're living kind of poor this past few years, but again, it's there's a domino effect. But again, the elites are working overtime. The Western elites, sorry, are working overtime, and right now their focus is more on the Middle East or Western Asia and Eastern Europe and parts of Africa, that region of the world. I feel like if the conflict in the Middle East would have not erupted, I feel like the domino effect for South America would have been much faster. Um, but again, everything is not set in stone, man. And again, trying to obtain Iran by force 2026, ongoing conflict. I already knew that the United States was not going to invade this Friday, which is today. Um, I do see it on April becoming very, very, very like an increase of attacks on both sides. Um, I think the model that the United States and Israel is trying to put the most effort into, like punching the KO the its opponents as quickest as possible, and the Iran and Russian model, they're trying to use it in the long term and giving them that leverage in order to do the, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh man, like grinding down, because again, China owns most of the minerals on the world right now. They have a monopoly on that. So if this conflict is in the long run, it's going to benefit Iran. If this conflict is in the short term, it benefits the United States. Now, that's why in my video of prediction of the future, I said July 2026, July 2027, and that's how I saw the vision more or less, the time when ammo becomes more scarcity for the United States and Israel, and that's when they might resort to new tactical nukes, and it's not gonna end well for everybody. And I feel like I already mentioned this. I don't want to go more into that, so I'm gonna cut this stream, and again, not everything is set in stone. We can change our future. And just like our future can change, our past can change. I forgot to mention something about the World Trade Center. Um, Everybody remembers two towers being hit, but nobody remembers that there was other buildings that got hit during the World Trade Center attacks. Everybody remembers two towers, and people spent hundreds of hours watching it because they would put it on the news for months upon end, and then we had movies and we had people talking about it for years. It was not until like the late 2000s, early 2010s that you kind of stopped hearing about it. And then for people to actually know that there's more than two buildings on New York City that got hit, right there, man, that's a Mandela effect. It timeline changed because remember, there's this influx of stuff that people want to change on our future that sometimes changes our past, and then we can change some of the stuff from the past. Um, Visualization per se, visualization, we can change some stuff in the future because a lot of the stuff in the past you think remember it in one way, but if you visualize it really hard in another way, you can actually force that reality or mindset of thinking, and it just magically changes because you put that energy and focus in changing that past. Um, and again, people will call this phenomenon flip flop. But again, that's really hard. It's much easier to change the future than to change the past. All right, I'm gonna cut this video. You guys have a good one. Take care. Peace.